Welcome back. My name is Marco. I'm a property investor, developer and mentor, and today I'll be talking to you about how I acquired a block of flats. I'm going to talk from the very start when I actually viewed and discovered the property all the way through to 2-3 years down the line of owning this asset. So let's start at the very beginning. I came across this block of flats in 2019. I was looking for something, a sizable property, whether that be a block of flats or a portfolio that I could purchase to generate an income. And I came across this block of flats. They've been on the market quite a long time. Several people had offers accepted on the block of flats and couldn't complete due to various reasons. One of the main reasons was that a lot of lenders didn't want to lend on this particular block of flats, and I'll come on to this later on in the video and how I managed to work around this. But basically this block of flats was on the market for a while, very much unloved, and it needed someone with maybe a fresh idea to come in and essentially complete on the deal, because people were interested but they weren't able to complete on this deal. So I viewed this property in November 2019, and for those of you in property then, a good property market, a solid growth phase of the market, but nowhere near as crazy as it was in 2021, 2022, when property was very difficult, or at least buying property at the right price was very difficult due to the huge increase in property investors. So 2019 was a bit easier time to be buying property, even though you're certainly in the boom phase of the economic cycle. So I viewed the property, fell in love with it straight away, and you should never really be emotionally attached to a property, and I wasn't, but it had so much character, the bags of character this property had, and straight away when I walked through the building I thought, wow, this is an asset that I want to own. I'll tell you a bit about the block of flats. So it was built in the 1800s, a very old Victorian building that was converted into 11 flats and over 4 floors. So you've got a basement, a ground, first and a second. And we went into all the flats. Now don't get me wrong, some of these flats needed a bit of TLC, a bit of a touch up, a bit of modernisation, but certainly that was what I was looking for, some asset that I could add value to, and this certainly ticked the box there. So the viewing, as you can imagine, took a fair while, as it's not just a single property you're walking through. It's 11 flats plus the communal areas plus the car park and the gardens and things of that nature, so it took a fair while. But anyways, I came back from the viewing feeling relatively positive. The listing certainly matched what the block of flats were in real life, because often you see the listing looks amazing, but you get there in person and the property certainly doesn't meet up to the online listing, but this wasn't the case. So the question was, how much should I offer on the property? And I made an offer on the property. It was rejected. Great. For those of you that work with me and my mentees know, we always want that first offer, most of the time anyway, to be rejected, because obviously if that's accepted, it maybe suggests that you've gone in a bit too high. A bit more about that in another video perhaps. So yeah, that was rejected. I came back with a second offer, which was accepted. Happy days. On my birthday, me and my wife, we were on holiday, and I got an email to say that the offer had been accepted, and yeah, we cracked open a bottle of champagne that night. So yeah, this was certainly a milestone for me. I've never bought a block of flats before up until this point in time, so it was a real milestone for me and a great achievement. But, and as this video will come on to describe very shortly, that was just the beginning. To see this all the way through to completion was certainly difficult, and a lot more so than a typical buy-to-let property. So offer accepted. Now we have to somehow try and get finance on this block of flats, which has been proved problematic for the previous people and companies trying to buy this block of flats because of a couple of reasons. Firstly, one of the flats is actually a studio, and at the time it was 26 square meters. Now some lenders that are willing to lend on blocks of flats and multi-units don't like there to be any units that are less than 30 meters. So obviously this was 26 is less than 30. So this ruled out quite a lot of lenders in the market just because one of the flats or studios was below 30 meters. And this was the only unit out of the 11 that was below the 30 threshold. So again, this was one problem. Another problem was the very top floor, the second floor of the building. This was converted more recently into 3 apartments. Now, because it's the very top floor, there's reduced head height. And again, some lenders were a bit funny here about how much of the actual space, the reduced head height space, they're lending on compared to the full head height space. And again, this is where RICS comes into play a bit more. And I think if I remember rightly, RICS define anything above 1.2 meters as full height. Anything less than that is reduced head height. And sometimes you'd count towards the square footage of that apartment. So that's something just to bear in mind for those of you that are looking to buy things of this nature. So again, 2 things from a finance point of view that were really blocking this deal happen. But I managed to find a lender that was open to this idea. So I approached a lender, a relatively mainstream buy-to-let lender. I approached them. My mortgage broker spoke to their business development manager, and everything sounded rosy. It sounded very positive. We put the application in, paid the fees, and at this level, the fees aren't just a couple of £100. They're potentially four figures, with all the other fees incorporated. Paid the fees, went to the underwriting, which is where the lender goes through the details of the property, just make sure that they're okay to lend on it, and it was rejected. So after all that the business development manager promised, it was rejected, and that lender could not lend on it. And I think we were maybe about, I remember rightly, maybe 6 to 8 weeks down the line from the offer being accepted. It was probably around February time. So I was absolutely gutted. We spent all this money, all this effort, all this energy in trying to get finance on the building, and it just didn't happen. So I had a little kind of brainstorming session with my mortgage broker. He did a bit of research, and we ended up speaking with a bit more of a niche lender. The rates were still reasonable. They were more expensive than the mainstream lenders, but still reasonable, and the deal definitely still stacked. So we spoke to them. Again, you speak to their sales department, their business development department, and they seemed quite keen. They said, yeah, I don't think it's going to be an issue pending a survey on the building. So again, we went around the building for the second time, got a survey done. And again, a survey on a block of flats is very different to a survey on, say, a 1-2 bed house. It takes a lot longer. It's obviously a lot more expensive. It's a lot thorough, and there's lots more things to report on. And the report from that survey, is 40 pages long as opposed to 3 or 4 pages, right? But anyways, fast forward, they were happy to lend on this property, which is absolutely amazing. So that was such incredible news. Don't get me wrong, we're paying a slight premium for that privilege, but they were happy to lend on it. They're a common sense lender, and they look at things and, they make a decision based on that. So this is when things start to get very interesting. Let's fast forward to March 2020. And what happened in March 2020? Well, if you don't know what happened, where the hell have you been? But COVID happened. In the first instance, obviously, for most people, COVID was absolutely terrible, especially from a business point of view. Now, if you remember back then, all the lenders pretty much stopped lending immediately around that 3rd, 4th week of March and said, right, we're not accepting any applications. We'd have no idea what's going on. Everyone thought a massive recession would soon follow. But, let's fast forward a year and 2 years after that, and look how booming the economy is. It's unbelievable. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. So every lender stopped lending, but I was happy because I've already got my mortgage offer, and I think it was valid for 3 or 6 months. I can't quite remember. So I was feeling good. I was feeling positive. However, the next showstopper with this actually came. I was going through all the titles. I was going through the mortgage offer, and I think it was my solicitor that notified me that something was incorrect. So the lender had assumed I was buying everything. And what I mean by everything was the building, so the block of flats, and all the land that accompanies that block of flats on the same title. And actually what we'd said to them in the first instance twice was we planned to split the titles, whereas I'm only buying the building and a little bit of land, not all the land. So again, my solicitor found this error, and of course this isn't a great thing to discover a few weeks before you're due to complete in April 2020, right? So we asked the lender to change the mortgage offer to be based on just the building and a little bit of land. This title would be split upon completion. So they came back and said, no, we've already issued the formal mortgage offer. We can't change anything. The only thing we can accept is if you put forward a new application. However, we're not accepting new applications now because of COVID. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, what have we got ourselves in for here? So the lender couldn't change anything, and we worked so hard to actually find a lender willing to lend on this block of flats. So, again, I had a little brainstorming session with my broker, and he says there's no chance we're going to find someone else to step in here in such a short space of time. Also, whilst COVID is going on and no one's lending on single buy-to-lets, never mind block of flats. So it wasn't a great time. So I went back to the vendor, the people selling this building, and just told them the exact situation we were in. The lender incorrectly assumed that we were buying the whole title, not just the building and a little bit of the land. And I said, I don't want this extra land, but I want this deal to go through. How much do you want for the land? But, PS, I don't want the land. In other words, I'm not willing to pay much. To be honest, I think they were only looking to get around £50,000 for this land, and they were advertising this on the open market, and they didn't get any buyers. So I was expecting somewhere south of 50,000, but certainly 5 figures, say, right? Anyways, the vendor said, okay, we'll think about it. We'll get back to you the next day or over the weekend, something like that. I can't quite remember. So we heard back from the vendor's solicitors, and they said, if you're willing to forego the rent apportionment, then they will chuck in that land and sell you the whole title. Now, for those of you that don't know what rent apportionment is, it's basically the portion of rent that is owed to you on that completion date. So let me say, for example, let's just say, make the maths really easy. We're looking to complete in the middle of the month, but all the tenants have paid on the first of the month. Well, half that rent will go to me because I'm taking ownership of that property from half of the month, from midway through the month, where the other half will be retained by the vendor. So this amount only worked out to be £1,800, and I was absolutely baffled. £1,800. I was expecting 5 figures, something like this. This is how much trouble they'd had trying to sell this block of flats, and I think they just kind of at this point wanted to sell it, wipe their hands clean because they were making an awful lot of money too, and move on. So obviously I was over the moon. 1,800 to buy this whole title and to have this problem solved was, in my opinion anyway, a great deal. So of course I said, right, let's get this going. And at this point I think we were about 8 or 9 days before we were due to complete on the 8th of April 2020. So again, great news, we didn't have to find a new lender. We could stick to the mortgage offer that was already issued, and we could complete on this property, and the rest of the transaction went really smoothly and on time. So that's how I acquired this block of flats, and all the aggravation and all the problems and objects that popped up over this, say, 5-month window from offer being accepted all the way through to completion. But we got there in the end. It was a win-win for all parties involved, and a great acquisition and a great asset to add to the portfolio. So let me break down the details for you. So this block of flats, or shall I say the title, was actually purchased for £675,000, and I put in a 25% deposit, now including all the other fees and stamp duty. And again, I paid a reduced stamp duty here because if you buy 6 or more dwellings in a single transaction, you qualify for what's called multiple dwellings relief. Again, if you want more information on that, speak to me. You pay reduced stamp duty, which is absolutely great. Not a lot of solicitors, and what I mean by this, I'd say 95% plus of solicitors do not understand this rule. So if you are buying a block of flats, speak to me. I'm more than happy to help, and I guarantee I'll save you 5 figures in stamp duty. So again, once you've accounted for all these fees, again, lending fees, solicitor fees, obviously solicitor fees at this level are much higher than a box standard house. I was in for the property for around £200,000 cash. Now, £200,000 cash. What I did with the land was I put in planning permission for 2 new dwellings. And let's fast forward a long time. It was actually 21 months from start to finish. And not only had I obtained planning permission for the 2 dwellings, but I sold these to a builder, and I sold these for £150,000, this plot of land with planning permission. So let's say I've got £200,000 cash in the deal, minus £150,000 from the sale of the land is about £50,000 cash. However, there are other fees that I had to pay to make this sale happen, and other planning and professional fees, which means actually I had about £75,000 cash left in this deal, which is absolutely great. £75,000 cash left in a block of 11 flats that's turning over a serious amount of cash. And again, I'm going to do another video that follows this video very shortly about how much this block of flats makes me and makes my portfolio. So essentially, I got lucky here. Again, I managed to find a really good lender that was willing to lend on this property. Don't get me wrong, at times it didn't look like it was going to happen, but because of my power team and because of my mortgage brokers that I work with, I was able to make this happen. Again, I got somewhat lucky on the plot of land as well. Well, I say somewhat is an understatement, but again, when the vendors came back to me and said, right, you can have it for £1,800, absolutely great. Now, again, not a lot of people were interested in this plot of land, even when it was on the open market. And again, there were risks with this plot of land because it had various TPOs, tree preservation orders on the boundary, which makes obtaining planning more difficult and building more costly. Therefore, the value of the plot of land is less. But again, I somehow managed to get planning permission for 2 5-bed semis and sold this. So again, if you don't take these types of risks in life, then you're not opening yourself to luck. And again, once you get out there, get yourself opportunities and put yourself out there, only then will you start seeing some luck and some good luck gravitate towards you. So these are the figures on this particular deal. A really amazing and successful deal, one that I'm looking to duplicate, but on a much larger scale, blocks of say 20, 30, 40 units and things of that nature. So I hope this video has been of use to you. And if you're looking to buy portfolios or blocks of flats, this is what I specialize in. I love buying portfolios for property investors who want a passive way of earning a living. Head to my website, www.ms7.uk, and book a call with me if this is something that you're looking for help with. So after this video, I'm going to release a video about how much do 100 apartments make, a really good opportunity that I was presented in 2022. So make sure to watch watch this next one coming out very, very shortly, and subscribe to the channel. YouTube tells me the majority of people watching this channel are not subscribed, so please do me a favour, it does mean a lot to me. Consider subscribing to the channel, and I wish you all the very best in your property investing day. Bye bye.